What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Verted Intro YouTube channel. This is episode 7 of the quarantine tapes called Love Every Human. So for me, this is probably going to be an episode where I lose a lot of people. I lose a lot of respect from some people, but I hopefully will gain a lot of respect from a lot of other people. And honestly, if I lose people and if I lose you, honestly, I really don't care, because this is a topic that we all should be aware of, should be on our hearts, and especially in a time like now, this is something that we all should be knowing what's going on, because it is going on and it's something that needs to be addressed. So for me, love has been an aspect of my life for a while now, especially since taking Jesus into my life. It's something that I've learned to express more. It's something that I've learned to encompass more. It's something that in my life prior to Jesus was something that I didn't really show. It's something that I didn't even think existed really. It is something that I only showed for a handful of people. Meanwhile, Jesus calls us to a higher standard and calls us to love a lot, to call not just a lot of people, but to love every single person, love every single human, to love your neighbor. So that's kind of why I didn't post a second devotional last week, or a second video last week, just because I was heartbroken. I just couldn't even really look at myself in the mirror. I just was in a fog. It was just a whole big daze. I didn't know what to do. I literally felt like my heart was broken. It felt like I just got broken up with a girlfriend, with the most beautiful person in the entire world. That's what it felt like. I was just so distraught. I just really couldn't really do anything, and I couldn't sit down and write, sit down and record, sit down and talk. It was hard for me. I barely did anything. I just really watched Netflix and then did an occasional drawing here and there, and that was even hard to do. And the reason why I was heartbroken was what came to surface last week. During the middle of the week was the Ahmaud Arbery situation. And what got me the most was the fact that we need to do better, better as people. This is ridiculous, the fact that this man was going for a jog and that he was shot down. It was shot 3 times. It was ridiculous, the fact that, and I think it's kind of ironic, but at the same time, a reason why he was shot 3 times, and the fact that it took 3 months for this to go to trial. It took a video that ironically was supposed to acquit the shooters, the people who murdered him in broad daylight. This video is supposed to acquit him, but meanwhile, it's going to hopefully sentence them for murder. This is ridiculous. This is the 3rd attempt at going to trial. 2 other prosecutors said there was no substantial evidence. The fact that this man was murdered and shot in broad daylight going for a jog. And it's saddening and it's frustrating. And I hope you can hear it in my voice, the anger. And it's hard that we have to go through something like this for the umpteenth time, that another black man has to lose his life thanks to another white man. This is ridiculous. It's 2020. This isn't the early 1900s. This isn't 1776. We're still treating other people that look different from us as if they're not worthy of life. And it's just disgusting. And it's something that needs to change. And for me, like I said, we need to do better as Americans. We need to do better as white people. And we need to do better as Christians. And we just need to do a better job at loving our neighbor. And for me, something that's coming to my mind, to think, it hurts me to think that I thought like this at one point in my life, but it's something that I know a lot of people are thinking about in the moment is what did he do? That shouldn't even be a question of what did he do? What do you mean, what did he do? He's going for a jog and he got shot 3 times. Oh, maybe he robbed something. It doesn't even give him, even if he did rob someone or broke into a house, it gives them no right to shoot him down, chase him down like he is some kind of animal. He is a human being. And for me, it's this is where the South is wrong. And the South is about over 100 years behind the fact that a person can go out and act as a vigilante. You're not Batman. You're a human being just like the man you shot down. He has constitutional rights just like you do. He has a right to a jury just like you do. Like, it's insane that we're in 2020 and we're revoking constitutional rights. We're revoking human rights. We're revoking civil rights. It's just frustrating. It's laughable, the fact that we're now in 2020 and we are still acting like it's the early 1900s. Like, it's insane. So we're going to kind of switch it up a little bit. I know I was going through my quiet times and like the scriptures I was reading, but today we're just going to switch it up. We're going to touch on 3 different scriptures, all encompassing love and encompassing other people. And the fact that this is something that I actually wrote in my devotional, so check it out. It's just honestly the reality of love and the reality of what God was. So the first scripture we're going to talk about is Matthew 22:37-40, where Jesus gives the greatest commandment and the second greatest commandment. So he says, where is it? He said, Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments." So just a couple things to talk about this. Before I go into the depth of the background of this passage, Mark 12:29-31 is another time. Well, it's the same time, but it's something that Mark adds himself, and it says all your strength. So Matthew says all your mind, your soul, and your heart, and Mark adds your strength. Like, this isn't important, is the fact that we have to love with our entire being, not just a little bit, not just one part, not just our mind, not just our heart, not just our soul, not just a little bit of strength, but all our strength, all our soul, all our mind, and with all our heart. Like, and this is incredibly important. It's something that Jesus did himself. Is he literally gave up his life in order to show the ultimate sacrifice of love. So the background of this is where an expert of the law comes to Jesus trying to trip him up and asks, what is the greatest commandment? Because, as you know, back in the day, the experts of the law basically knew the Old Testament frontwards and backwards. They knew all the laws, all 613 of Moses' laws. And so he was trying to trick Jesus in the fact of trying to have him pick out one of the 613 laws and say which one is the greatest. But Jesus, being Jesus, basically did it, but did it in his own way. And he basically wrapped it up into one common thing, and that is love. Love, love, love. Love of God and the love of others. And for me, it's important to think, and I forget, I'm really blanking on the song that I heard it in, but I'll put it in the blanket right here of what song it was where I heard it from. But the artist said, "You can't say you love God if you have hate on your heart. There's no such thing as hate inside of God. He is fully invoked in love. He judges in love. He saves in love. He acts in love." And I just love the way Ravi Zacharias put this quote of when someone basically asked him kind of what this scripture should mean. And Ravi Zacharias talked about how Moses had 613 laws in the Old Testament, and how David wrapped it up into 15 laws. Isaiah wrapped it up into 6, and then Micah wrapped it up into 3. And then here Jesus encompasses and puts it all into 2. And basically he wrapped all 613 of the messianic laws into 2 of one idea, and that is love. Like I said, the love of God and the love of others. And so now we're going to kind of go into a great story of love and what love is and kind of who we should be loving. So we're going to go into I don't know if you guessed it, but the story of the Good Samaritan, which is Luke 10:25-37. So kind of the background of this is basically the same thing as like someone asked Jesus, who should we love? And Jesus was like, your neighbor. And then they were like, who's your neighbor? And he gave them this story, which I'm going to read the entire thing for you guys. Like I said, it's Luke 10:25-37, where it states, on one occasion, expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. You answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Jesus then replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by the other side. So too a Levite, and he came to the place and saw him pass by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after this man, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus in verse 37 replies, go and do likewise. There's an incredible quote that, and just an incredible sermon that Martin Luther King Jr. did on this passage. And several different pastors have done amazing messages on this passage. MLK quoted it and wrapped it up in saying, imagine the first question the priest and the Levite asked was, if I step to help him, what will happen to me? But the very nature of his concern, the Good Samaritan reversed the question and said, if I don't stop to help this man, what will happen to him? And this is something that we all should be asking ourselves. What will happen to him? Not what will happen to me. What will happen to him? We need to start focusing on other people and stop focusing on ourselves. By nature, we are incredibly selfish. But Jesus here is kind of telling us, do the opposite. Start acting unselfishly and start acting as I would have, as a Samaritan would have, and help that person. This story is just incredible to think about because there's so many things we can take about. How the fact that he's talking to a predominantly Jewish crowd, like legit predominantly Jewish crowd, probably 9 out of every 10 people in the crowd right now are Jewish, and Jesus is telling this story. What is important about that fact is the fact that the Jewish people, it couldn't stand the sight of a Samaritan. They thought they were the worst of the worst. They thought they were worthless. They called them ceremonial unclean. They said anything that they touch, I can't even touch. I can't even be in the same room as a Samaritan. That's the way they thought of them. And basically, in sports terms, a Jewish person is a Yankee fan. Meanwhile, a Samaritan is a Red Sox fan. I can relate to that because of the fact that as a Yankee fan, I really can't stand Red Sox fans. It's just, they drive me off the wall. They think they know everything. They think they're the best, even though we got 27 rings. They only got a handful. We're just a better team. And this is the view of what the Jewish people had, is the fact that they thought they were better. Meanwhile, they're just like everyone else. They're sinners just like the Samaritan are. The Samaritans are sinners just like the Jewish people are. They have fallen just like everyone else. And the fact that he is now saying, act like a Samaritan, was mind-blowing to these Jewish people. It confused them to no other. And the fact that this Samaritan did so much more than a priest who you would have thought would be there praying for the man, helping the man out. A Levite who is also a priestly and religious man should have done the same thing. He chose two people out of the Jewish culture who have high standards, have high moral standards, and they did nothing. Meanwhile, he chose a low of the low to help the person who was robbed, bandaged him up. He put him on his own donkey. Like, that's insane. Like, it's basically, we're throwing him in our car. It's like, that's something we wouldn't really think about. And it's something we should start thinking about, especially with a homeless person, is help him out. Like, we're walking past them, but that's not even besides the fact. That's just another bullet point for another angry conversation. So, and then he went in to gave the shopkeeper 2 denarii, which I'm going to again fact check myself and put it here, but I want to say it was about 2 or 3 months worth of month's wages. And he gave it to the innkeeper to take care of him while he went and did his thing, got more money, got more supplies to come back and make sure he was okay. So this is just incredible, and it shows the passion of the Samaritan. It's something that we need to be doing. We need to be doing a whole lot more than acting like a priest and acting like a Levite. Start acting like a Samaritan. And then the last and final passage is going to be out of John 13:34-35. And this is a passage I think is important to think about right now, especially after what Jesus said was the 2 greatest commandments, and then the story of the Good Samaritan is basically, this is the standard we have to be living by. And like I said, John 13:34-35, which states, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love another." And this is incredible. Like, fact that Jesus gave us a standard. He didn't just say love one another. Like, that could have been simple and easy. He said love one another as I have loved you. And like I have stated before, Jesus didn't go around hapsy-daisy loving one person, not loving the other. He loved every single person. He stepped out of the Jewish cultural boundaries to talk to a Samaritan. He talked to a woman. He talked to a Gentile. He taught them. He picked up and talked to children. He talked to people that people wouldn't even think take a second guess of talking to him. He touched a person who was covered in leprosy. He taught them. He healed them. He didn't care who you were, what you looked like, if you were considered unceremonial, unclean, or if you thought you were the greatest of the greatest, or if you were the greatest of the greatest. He treated you just like he treated everyone else, and that was full of love and full of compassion and full of grace. And this is something that we need to start doing, living by the standard that Jesus gave us. He loved every single human, and we just need to start loving every single person just like that. Not caring what the skin color they are, where they're from, whether they're from down the street, if they live in a 7-figure mansion or they live in a broke down apartment. It doesn't matter. The grass is greener on the other side. We need to help each other up. We need to stop labeling people. We have to stop thinking of the stereotypes, because at least 50% of the time, the stereotypes are completely incorrect. They are stereotypes given to people and by the higher people. This is where we need to stop. We need to start being the difference makers in this world. This is 2020. This isn't the 1900s. We need to start acting like it's 2020, and the fact that everyone has constitutional rights. Everyone has civil rights. Everyone has the ability to jog down the street. Like, it's just insane that I have to be talking about this in 2020. So, just like anything else, we're going to have to talk about the application. And this is something that's not only a challenge for me, it's a challenge for white people, it's a challenge for Asian people, it's a challenge for black people, it's a challenge for Indian people, it's a challenge to Hispanic people, it's a challenge for every single person. So we need to start putting ourselves in other people's shoes. The fact that if I go up to a white person right now today and ask them, hey, would you put on this black person's shoes and walk in his shoes for a day? I bet you 9 out of 10 times that person's gonna laugh in my face and say, hell no. And it's the matter of the fact that the way we live and the way we presume them to live, and the fact that we know that they feel hate on a daily basis. So we need to start making sure, giving ourselves the opportunity to make sure that we are able to walk in other people's shoes. Step down to the step, not even to say step down to the level, but put yourself in their shoes, really. And then for me, this is a challenge that was given to me and a couple other campus students, and even a church at one time by one of my mentors, Steve Kennard, when he taught the Good Samaritan. He challenged us this challenge of every single day, put yourself in the shoes of someone else in that story. Put yourself in the shoes of the robbers. Put yourself in the shoes of the priest. Put yourself in the shoes of the Levite. Put yourself in the shoes of the Samaritan. Put yourself in the shoes of Jesus. Put yourself in the shoes of the person being robbed. Put yourself in the shoes of the innkeeper. And put yourself in the shoes that got robbed, and the person in the shoes that of the audience that Jesus is teaching. See every single aspect of the story, because there are so many countless different views that we can see and get from this story. So, and then the next challenge is ask yourself what you can do. There's several things we can start doing. We can start giving to the community. We can go out to the marches. We can have conversations, and that is the next challenge. Have conversations. Literally ask the person next to you. Ask someone that doesn't look like you, live the lifestyle that you live. Ask them what you can do to make us equal and have a united culture. And the next challenge is really for the white people. If you're white, give up your white privilege. And the fact that we're in 2020 and there's people that don't recognize their white privilege or don't think white privilege is real is scary. Those people are the problem, and if you are that person, I'm sorry, but you need to change. Give up your white privilege. Use that privilege for the building of others, building up of others. Use that white privilege to build unity in a community. Use that white privilege to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Use that privilege to speak up and talk about the issues that you see. Use that white privilege for the help of others. And then for me, and as for everyone else, this is, like I said, these are challenges that I'm going to be putting on myself. But for me, I really call out for help. I ask every single person that watches this video, every single time, to share this with someone. Share it with a neighbor, share it with a family member, and then share it with someone that doesn't look like you, and share it with an enemy. So this is for those people who are watching this to come at me. I ask for help. Where can I help? I really want to help. I'm tired of seeing people being shot down for no reason. People losing their lives for no reason. To see the fact that white privilege is still a thing breaks my heart. So I'm asking for help. How can I help you? What can I do to help this community become united? We live in the United States of America, but we are far from united. Let's start acting like it. And as always, love you guys.